Hello, everybody. Welcome to Friday's edition of Just Parlays. I'm Jim Williams, along with the man, the legend himself, Christopher King. Chris, good to see you, my man. It is Friday, and we've come through our first week together. And I got to say, it's been a lot of fun. There's been a lot of good things. You've gotten a lot of stuff right and a couple things wrong. But, hey, that's the way it is. That's why they call it gambling, right?
Right. So, that's why Pat Toomey said on any given Sunday.
Right.
You can substitute any day of the week into that spot, but
at this point, yeah.
True.
So anyway, observations from last night before we get started for today.
All right. Before we get started, let's address the elephant in the room. I told you yesterday that I was afraid that Michael Gallup wouldn't get enough volume or score a touchdown. As it turned out, I was wrong on that. He scored a 1-yard touchdown pass on a couple plays after CeeDee Lamb was tripped up. So I blame Dak Prescott for only targeting Amari Cooper twice. I thought he was going to get the ball a lot more than that coming back from COVID. You'd think that he would have worked the ball more to him and CeeDee Lamb. The Saints, they put up almost 400 yards of offense, but they turned it over 4 times, including that pick 6 late in the game that pretty much sealed their fate. New Orleans, It doesn't matter who they have under center right now. It could be Jameis Winston. It could be Trevor Siemian. It could be Taysom Hill. You can get Archie Manning and put him back there. It's not going to make a big difference. The Saints are a team in disarray. They probably just about played themselves out of the playoffs now with 5 straight losses. They're now 5-7 on the season.
I agree. I think that you're looking at a problem. But at the same time, I'll tell you what, I don't know about you. I certainly was not impressed with the Cowboys at all.
No, they missed a lot of opportunities. They missed a couple 4th downs early in the game that could have sustained drives. They didn't play well defensively necessarily. The first touchdown New Orleans scored, it was Anthony Brown, who we talked about last week, failing to play coverage, leaving little Jordan Humphrey wide open. And that's a problem for Dallas. I mean, outside of Trayvon Diggs, you don't really have anyone in the secondary you can rely on consistently to shut somebody down. Mm-hmm. Well, I guess Brown can but he has to mug somebody in order to make sure there's a play made. And that's what cost them the game last week against the Raiders.
Right. And it almost cost them last night a couple of times because they got themselves in. There were a couple of really dicey plays there where it looked like they had pass interference, but it turned out not to happen. But it certainly was a couple of close things. So I think Dallas is going to have some interesting things, and we'll see how the Washington football team, which plays this coming Sunday, the next time they play each other will be, Washington only plays the remainder of their games are all in division games. So
after they play the Raiders this week, and then they've got 2 with Dallas, 2 with the Eagles, and 1 with the Giants.
Right. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. The old saying, that's their fate is in their own hands. And I agree with you. I think the Saints played themselves right out of the playoffs last night. So,
and one other observation coming from the NBA: what did we watch last night with the Oklahoma City Thunder as they were obliterated, 152-79, and setting an NBA record for the worst margin of victory in league history? I mean, 73 points. Memphis's bench scored 93 points and outscored the Thunder by themselves. No Memphis starter played more than 21 minutes. 9 of the 12 guys for the Grizzlies scored in double figures. And you'd have to figure they scored 152 points and Ja Morant wasn't even on the floor.
That's scary. And I get there are days, I guess, when people don't show up, but that's historic, as you just put it, for people just not showing up. And,
I mean, I mentioned my 18-year-old son at the third quarter that the score at that point was like 84-36, and my wife said that they should have just quit the game right then because there was no way they were going to come back.
Yeah, that would have been, that's one of those things where you go back to the days of, when you're playing kids softball or kids, routine where they get the mercy rule where they say,
right,
okay, rather than make it any worse, let's just end it right here.
It it was a brutal game. I mean, Memphis shot 62.5% from the floor. You don't shoot like that in practice most nights. It was just horrible.
Yeah, pretty wild. Just pretty wild. Just an amazing situation. But all right, well, that was then. Okay, this is now. This is Friday, and we are going to go to the college hardwood because there's some fun games, and let's kick that off. And you take us on our trip to memory lane here as we go to the MAC, but not the MAC meaning the Midwest Conference, the other MAC.
Right, instead of the Mid-American, it's the MAAC, the Metro Atlantic, where the Rider Broncs are on the road to face the Iona Gales, coached by Rick Pitino. Now, Iona's 7-2 on the year. Rider's just 3-6. The Rider is 0-5 on the road, while Iona's 3-0 at home. You just saw, well, maybe you didn't. Depends on whether you were watching college basketball last weekend or not. But on Thanksgiving Day, Iona beat number 10 Alabama on a neutral floor and marked the first top 10 win in MAC conference history over a top 10 opponent. They went on to lose to Belmont and Kansas, but still 7-2 under Rick Pitino. You can't complain about that at this stage of the season. The Gales 96th in effective field goal percentage. They're 22nd in three-point field goal percentage defense, and they're 24th in block percentage. Meanwhile, Rider doesn't score a lot. They're 287th, averaging 65.8 points a game. They're 347th in field goal percentage, 342nd in three-point shooting. Rider just 2-8 in their last 10 overall, 1-4 after a straight-up loss. Iona's 4-0 in their last 4 at home, 8-1-2 in their last 11 on Friday. They're coming off a win over Marist in their MAC opener on Wednesday night. This is Rider's first conference game. They're coming off back-to-back losses. They were stomped by Mississippi State the other night. I like Iona given the 12.5 points, playing at home. Rider's just overmatched. They don't score a ton. And you know Pitino's going to have his team ready to go.
Absolutely. And, I really think that, look, Rick's done you had mentioned in our pre-show that Iona was not a bad ball club, which it's not. There's no question about it. But I'm happy for Rick. I'm happy for him doing well at Iona. I think that there are a lot of programs that are looking around that are wondering what the hell they, were thinking when they didn't hire Rick Pitino. But I wonder how much longer he's going to stay at Iona. I mean, he took them to the tournament last year. There's every reason to believe that they'll return this time around. Yeah,
I mean, they're obviously going to be one of the front runners in the MAC. If you look at a lot of the other teams in there, you got a lot of the middle of the road teams or rebuilding teams like Niagara with Greg Paulus as their coach, Canisius with Reggie Witherspoon, St. Peter's. There's a lot of teams that can make some noise, but they're probably a rung or two down the ladder from where Iona stands right now.
Right. Well, as Horace Greeley once said, go west, young man. And so we are leaving the MAC and we're heading west.
Yep, and we're going to have a battle of teams from the state of California in a non-conference clash as Pepperdine from the West Coast takes on the UC Santa Barbara Gauchos from the Big West. Now, if you were with us earlier this week, I told you that UC Santa Barbara should have beaten UT Arlington, and they didn't because I guess they forgot there was a game that day. However, Pepperdine just 2-7 this year under Lorenzo Romar. They're 0-3 on the road, 0-2 on neutral floors. This isn't the same team you saw last year as Colby Ross and Kessler Edwards, who both averaged better than 17 points a game, no longer with the organization. And it shows as Pepperdine is just 271st in effective field goal percentage at 46%. They're 281st in turnover percentage and 220th in three-point shooting. Now, Ross averaged 7.7 assists per game last year as a floor general. You wish that he was still there for Pepperdine. Meanwhile, they're facing a UC Santa Barbara team that's 17th in the country when it comes to field goal percentage defense. They're 10th in three-point defense. Pepperdine's 1-4 against the spread in their last 5 as a road underdog, 1-4 in their last 5 on the road, period. Santa Barbara 4-1 at home as a favorite, and 4-1 in their last 5 as a favorite overall. Look for them to win this one, cover the 8 points, and bounce back from that disappointing showing that we saw the other night.
Yeah, and as we were talking in the pre-show, both these places, UC Santa Barbara, which is a great great institution and a fun place to go. As a matter of fact, famous alumni of UC Santa Barbara, Peter Uberoff, former commissioner of of Major League Baseball, and also
and he wasn't he the head of the '84 Olympic Committee?
He was head of the U.S. He was the head of the Olympic Committee. So definitely two things that Peter was the head of, and so he now is part of a group of people who are our investment group that owns a number of hotels, plus also owns the Pebble Beach golf course out in the Monterey Peninsula. So good for Peter and good for UC Santa Barbara. The Gauchos get their win. So, all right, so we've gone to the East Coast. We've gone to the West Coast. And next up, where are we going, boss?
We're going to go to Beantown. Well, Chestnut Hill, actually. Boston College is going to face Notre Dame tonight in an ACC tilt. Mm-hmm. That's not a typo. For some reason, Boston College is a 5-point underdog at home against the Notre Dame team that is 3-3 on the season and who lost their only road game earlier this week when they fell 82-72 at Illinois. Now, Notre Dame has dropped 3 of their last 4, and their lone win in that stretch was when they beat Chaminade in the losers bracket of the Maui Invitational. Now, when your only win is over an NAIA school who most claim to relevance was 4 decades ago when they beat Ralph Sampson in Virginia, it doesn't give you a whole lot of confidence. Meanwhile, Boston College is 5-0 at home. They've won 2 straight after a 3-game slide. They're 5-2 in their last 7 at home. Meanwhile, Notre Dame 3-14 in their last 17 games against the spread with teams with a winning percentage above 600. They're 1-5 in their last 6 on the road. They're 1-7 in their last 8 overall, and they are yet to cover in a game that actually has had a line this season. They're 0-5 against the spread. Take the points in Boston College. I can't figure out for the life of me why they're an underdog at home at the Silvio Conti Forum when you're facing a Notre Dame team that A, has lost 3 of 4, B, they don't have a very deep rotation to begin with. They only go 7, maybe 8 guys deep. And playing on the road is going to be an issue for them.
Absolutely. And, of course, the Holy War is what it's called when those two teams get together, two prominent Catholic institutions. I will tell you, having done games at Chestnut Hill, that's a very intimate building. And it can get loud. And I guarantee you tonight that it's going to be a tough place to play. And they love the idea of torching the Irish. So if they get up, of any sort of lead, which we expect that they will, that's going to be a loud, boisterous, crazy place for Notre Dame to come into, and hostile territory. Pretty much that's what they're going to have all night long in Chestnut Hill.
I don't get why Mike Bray doesn't get more players to fill out his rotation. Playing 7 and 8 guys, you're going to burn that team out. I mean, how long can Paul Atkinson play? How long can you play guys like Prentice Hub without running him into the ground? I know they wanted Robbie Carmody to come back. He's out again for the season with another knee injury. He's probably spent more time injured than he's done anything else in South Bend. Why doesn't Bray get more guys?
I don't understand. I mean, that program was an elite program when Digger was there, and it's had its ups and downs. I mean, they're now in the ACC, but even in the ACC, early Mike Bray had a pretty decent team in the ACC. But Notre Dame's basketball has not been anywhere near the Digger Phelps era basketball under Mike, and you wonder, you're not going to win a lot, and you can only go 8 deep on the bench in college basketball.
Yeah, I don't remember him running that short of a bench when he was at Delaware, and he had success there. So, I mean,
yeah,
why now? I mean, it's not like you don't have scholarships to give.
True. And that people aren't wanting to go to Chestnut Hill to play. I'm sorry, to Notre Dame to play basketball. So we'll see. But I agree with you. I mean, Boston College. This might be tonight this is your opportunity to actually just steal money. Because
Yeah, 'cause I can't for the life of me. I've looked everywhere around. There's no injuries to speak of. There's nothing else, unless there's some massive snowball fight that's going to knock out half of BC's starting lineup before tip off. I can't understand why they'd be an underdog.
Well, I got to say, I don't know. By the way, thanks D from Detroit, who says great show, guys. And we got a bunch
Liam,
of
yes, we touched on Gallup's touchdown earlier. I still don't think, if CeeDee Lamb would have, not tripped over his own shoes, he would have scored at the play before. So that would have been a non-factor. But good on you if you did stick with Gallup scoring in that game. Like I said, Amari Cooper, I'm surprised he was only targeted twice in the contest.
And Liam, I got to tell you, my friend, and all of you out there, that we appreciate. Look, we're going to get things right. We're going to get things wrong. You're going to get things right. You're going to get things wrong. This is a great place to come and share your happiness and your grief with us, because we're both going to have happy days and we're going to have days that don't go our way. And that's the great part of it. So, and by the way, since I'm in the shameful plug mode, please, and I see there's a bunch of you out there, please do us a favor. Smash that like button, smash that subscription button, because we want you to keep coming back here so that, you can tell us when you're right, and we'll gracefully accept that. And we'll also, as I said, celebrate our wins together. Okay. So if you'll do that for us, greatly would appreciate it. So without any further ado, Christopher, we're going from the hardwood to on frozen pond.
Yep, we're going to go to the Big Apple, where the San Jose Sharks head to Madison Square Garden to take on the Rangers. Both these teams have played well of late. San Jose's won 3 straight and 5 of 6, while the Rangers won 8 of 9 after beating the Flyers 4-1 on Wednesday night. So if you were with us Wednesday, we told you to take the Rangers in that contest. One big advantage for the Rangers, besides playing at home where they're 6-1-1 this season, is that they've only played once in the last week, giving them a massive rest advantage over a San Jose team that's playing the second game of a back-to-back. They beat Barry Trotz and the Islanders 2-1 in overtime last night at the UBS Arena, and then another game where we told you to take San Jose. But it's also their third game in 4 nights here. The Rangers have won 7 of the last 10 meetings and had an OT loss in that stretch. They've taken the last 5 matchups between these teams. San Jose just 6-18 in the second game of their last 24 back-to-backs. They're 1-4 in their last 5 on Friday, and they're 1-9 in their last 10 when it's the fourth game of a 4-game and 6-night set. Meanwhile, you're facing a Rangers team that have won their last 4. They've won their last 5 when their opponent scores 2 goals or less, and they've won their last 5 as a home favorite. I like the way San Jose's played lately, but going on the road to face a Rangers team at a rest deficit, I like the Rangers with the puck line at home over a tired San Jose team.
Well, and, the interesting part to me is last night when you're talking about that, was that was a 2-1 win in overtime. So,
right. It was 1-1 after the first period, and no one scored again until the end. And then
nobody scored again. And it's like, wow, it's been tough for Barry. I mean, it really has. I mean, defensive wise, they've held they've held it, but they just can't seem to score. And you're not going to win a lot of games 1-0 and 2-1.
That's true. I mean, it's not the golden era of hockey back in the 20s and 30s when you'd have a guy like George Hainsworth shut out 22 or have 22 shutouts in 44 games. You're not going to win games like that anymore on a regular basis. You've got to be able to light the lamp, and that's something that the Islanders, they haven't been able to do. And part of it's injuries, part of it's COVID, part of it's, there's eventually going to have a regression to the mean, and they're going to have some success where some of those shots are going to go in. But right now, it's not happening.
Sure. Yep, that's the way it goes. All right, we're going from the Big Apple over to the Emerald Edmonton City and the Kraken.
Yep, in the Emerald City of Seattle. I like Edmonton on the road here. They've won 5 of their last 6. They're 7-4 on the road. Seattle, they've played better of late. They've won 4 of their last 6, but they're just 5-6 at home this season. Meanwhile, they're facing an Edmonton team that's 3rd in the league in goals per game with 3.81. Seattle still, despite their improved defensive play, still stands 29th in goals against at 3.48 goals a night. The Oilers, led by that 1-2 punch of Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, who are 1 and 2 in scoring with 41 and 40 points respectively this year. Edmonton with the league's top power play, cashing in on 35.9% of their chances with the man advantage. Seattle's a below-average team when it comes to penalty killing. The Oilers have won their last 7 against Pacific Division teams. They've won 9 of the last 10 after allowing 2 goals or less in their last game, and they're coming off a 5-2 home win over Pittsburgh. Edmonton 13-3 in their last 16 against the West. Meanwhile, Seattle 0-7 in their last 7 games against the Western Conference, 0-5 against the Pacific Division, and it's going to be Philippe Grubauer in net for the Kraken as Chris Dredger is out indefinitely with an upper body injury. Meanwhile, Mikko Koskinen, who's been on a real roll for the Oilers, in goal for them. I like the Oilers. It's tough to slow down McDavid and Draisaitl. Plus, you've got Zach Hyman in there. He's really been a real boost since coming over as a free agent in the offseason. And the Oilers just have too much firepower for a lot of teams, and that includes Seattle tonight.
Connor McDavid is one of those guys who's worth the price of just to watch the game. I mean, he's one of those guys who I would pay money to actually watch. He's phenomenal. Philip Grubauer, from his days as a Capital, he had ups and downs, and I have a feeling that he's going to be seeing Connor McDavid in his dreams sometime after the game tonight, because that guy's got such great speed, such breakaway abilities. I mean, it's hard to contain.
And he can handle the puck like nobody's business. I mean, you saw that goal a couple weeks ago when he went through the entire Rangers team and put it in. I mean, how do you stop a guy like that without mugging him and taking his wallet?
That's about the only way you could. But he's so much fun to watch. I mean, I don't know that there's anybody in the league that's as fast as he is.
That's true. And Liam, the Hurricanes, I was disappointed with their showing against Ottawa. I thought Ottawa was going to completely go in the tank after getting bombed by Vancouver. The Caps are a sore spot because I said that they would beat Chicago because Chicago doesn't score on the road. And I don't remember if they went – I didn't check to see if they went with Vanacek or Samsonov in net last night, but it was a disappointing showing to lose in a shootout, especially coming off the heels of blowing that 3-goal lead against Florida the other night. But speaking of Florida, I was worried last night when I saw that they were down, or Buffalo jumped on them 3-0, only to watch the Sabres then return to their normal form and give up 7 of the last 8 goals to lose going away. So that was entertaining.
There you go. Well, it was, and look, Banashek was in the crease last night for the Caps, so it's on him. And for that one,
I guess they decided to give Samsonov the night off.
Yeah, I guess so. They figured, the night before he had a bad period, which was not, a bad third period, and it cost them a game. So figured they'd give him a night off, and didn't seem to help. But the Caps will be back. Let's go out to Vegas and Arizona. One good team and one really bad team.
Gila River Arena. And what can we say about Arizona that hasn't already been said? They're 5-16-2 on the year. They're 2-6-1 at home. They're last in the league in goals per game at 1.83. They're last in shots per game, so they're not even creating opportunities. Meanwhile, you're facing a Vegas team that's 10th in the league in scoring at 3.18 goals a night. Vegas has won 8 of the last 10 matchups between these teams. They're 10-1 in their last 11 on one day of rest. They're 4-1 in their last 5 against the Central Division. Arizona 1-5 in their last 6 on 2 days of rest. They're 2-10 in their last 12 at home. They're 1-10 in their last 11 after allowing at least 5 goals. Karel Vejmelka in net again for the Coyotes. They were originally leaning towards Carter Hutton, but it's probably better that he doesn't play since Hutton is 0-2-2 with a goals against of over 7 in his limited action this season. Either way, Robin Lehner is due for a bounce-back performance after they struggled the other night against Anaheim in that 6-5 loss. Look for Vegas to win this one by multiple goals on the road as Arizona continues to play inept hockey, and that's being generous.
Yeah, I think that there's a very good possibility that that they should be changing the name of the Coyotes to the Cactus because they don't move much and they don't do much. So, they're really not an impressive team. And I really have always been impressed with what has been done out there in Vegas with how they crafted that team from day one. It was brilliantly put together. It was put together like a team that had been there for 6 years before they ever played their first game. They were
And
smart.
what is even scarier is they'll be even more dangerous once William Karlsson comes back, and once the recently acquired Jack Eichel.
Yeah,
They're targeting him to come back sometime around the All-Star break. That could be another boost for that team.
mm-hmm.
Because a team that's loaded with offensive talent.
Yeah, and they just they're not streaky either. I mean, they're consistent. Okay, they may lose a game here and there. That's fine. They get back, they start playing again, and bing, bang, boom, they're moving along. So I've always thought that the Vegas has put together a good team, and they're going to be competitive regardless of whether they're at the top of the table or they fall down a few rungs in the Pacific out there in out west. They're as good as anybody out there in the West. I don't see that anybody's going to give them a whole lot of grief. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch them the rest of the way. So too bad for the Coyotes or Cactus, whichever you prefer. Back to the ice we go. This time.
Yep, and last one is out in the Peg, Winnipeg hosting New Jersey. Now, I picked Winnipeg the other day against Arizona and said that, Arizona doesn't score, and Arizona didn't, but they still won because it was a 1-0 game. That dropped the Jets to 7-3-1 at home this season. New Jersey 3-4-1 on the road. They're playing the second game of a back-to-back. They were beaten last night in Minnesota 5-2. It's also the Devils' third game in 4 nights, while the Jets haven't played since Monday. So, I mean, that's a pretty big rest advantage. Plus, the Jets were already at home as it was. New Jersey 1-4 in their last 5 on the road and 1-5 against teams with a struggling record. The Jets only allow 2 goals a game at home, and the Devils are 0-4 against the West. In this series, Winnipeg has won 7 of the last 8 overall and 6 of the last 8 in Winnipeg. I like the Jets to take this one. New Jersey's got to be tired after playing San Jose at home Tuesday, and then playing Minnesota in Minnesota Thursday, and now having to play Winnipeg in Winnipeg on Friday.
Yeah, it's funny. The Devils used to be the kind of team that Barry Trotz, we talked about earlier, with the Islanders, that was a defensive team that basically annoyed you most of the time because they just literally would not, they stayed in the center of the ice. They just didn't move. They played literally defensive, dared you to actually, you had to get through 3 or 4 guys to even come close to the goal. But that's changed a bit.
Lock with Jacques Lemaire.
Right. But they've changed it up a little bit. They're still not at the elite level in that division, but it should be a fun night tonight. I think you're right about tough night for the Devils, because the devil in the detail in this fact is that they're probably not going to win. So, all right, where do we go from here, my friend?
Well, now we'll go to the NBA hardwood as we go back to the nation's capital.
To the association.
Yep, and we got the Wizards hosting the Cavs tonight. Now, Cleveland has won 3 in a row. Washington has won 3 of 4. The Wizards are 8-2 at home this season. They've taken the last 4 matchups between these teams. That includes a 3-point win at Cleveland back on November 10th. Now, the Cavaliers won't have Colin Sexton, who's done for the year after a knee injury. C.D. Osman also out tonight with a back injury, so that's another blow to the Cavs' rotation. Cleveland doesn't score a whole lot. They're 25th in the league in scoring offense. They're 16-34-2 in their last 52 on the road against teams with a winning home record. They're 3-13 against the spread in their last 16 on Friday. They now face a Washington team that's 7-1 in their last 8 Friday games, 5-1 in their last 6 at home, 4-1 in their last 5 at home against teams with a winning road record. We just saw Washington beat Minnesota by 8 the other night at home. I think they can cover the 3.5 here. Bradley Beal is in the mix. You've got Montrezl Harrell, Kyle Kuzma. Those guys really adding some depth to the rotation. And you have to think that the Wizards will be even better as the season goes on and Thomas Bryant comes back. If Rui Hachimura can get up to speed, then you've got Davis Bertans. You've got a lot of weapons there in that Washington rotation. You have to think that things will get better offensively, and they're playing good defense for Wes Unseld Jr., which is something they didn't do under Scott Brooks.
Right. You mentioned it earlier in the week as we talked about it, about how impressed you were with Wes Unseld Jr.
I mean, he's done a lot to make that team realize you have to play on both ends of the floor, and they've bought into his system. I don't know if part of the problem was Westbrook and John Wall in recent years, because now it seems neither of them are there, and they're more cohesive.
Yeah,
and they're actually playing a better system.
Yeah, and you said earlier in the week that you thought, and I agree with you, that the situation with Washington is addition by subtraction, and that the team got better because of that.
Right, because you don't have to rely on a guy like Waller Westbrook pretty much taking the ball on every possession, and there was no ball movement, there was no flow. Guys weren't getting involved. Now Beal's going to score his points. There's no doubt about that. But there's other guys that can pick up the slack. You don't have to. People aren't going to double and triple team Beal and force him to kick it out to somebody that's going to end up clanking something. Now you've got guys that can knock down shots. They're more versatile, and that makes them dangerous. And it shows that they lead the Southeast Division.
The other thing is, and we talked about this earlier, we'll move on from here, but with Washington, the way they play and the way Miami plays, you got two teams in the South that both play defense, which is not necessarily something that happens a lot in the NBA these days.
That's true. It seems like it's defense optional these days, the way the league works. You see some really ridiculous scores lately, and that's just, I guess, the way the game has evolved. It's gone back almost to the way it was in the 80s when you would see teams repeatedly break the 120-point mark seemingly every night. Half the league is flirting with that number.
Yeah. All right.
Unless you're Orlando.
Well, I'm sorry?
I said unless you're Orlando.
Yeah, good reason
or
for
Detroit.
The Magic or Detroit. Those two teams, it's not only defense optional, it's scoring optional in their cases as well. All right. I think we headed out to Portland now?
No, the Barclays Center.
My problem. My apologies. We're going.
No, we had Portland yesterday, and Portland rolled over died.
Yeah, we're going up 95.
So we're not going to talk about that. Brooklyn, I'm taking -7 over Minnesota. The Timberwolves have won 7 of their last 9, but they just are coming off a road loss to Washington. Meanwhile, Brooklyn's won 8 of 10 after beating the Knicks Tuesday night. Karl Anthony Towns is questionable tonight with a tailbone injury, while Jalen Noel also questionable with the flu. Patrick Beverley is out for Minnesota with a groin injury. Minnesota doesn't shoot the ball well, despite their near 500 record. They're 27th field goal percentage and 23rd in three-point shooting this year. They have to go against a Brooklyn defense that's second in the league in field goal percentage defense and who lead the league in three-point defense at 30.8%. Minnesota has lost 5 of their last 6 against the spread as a road underdog. They've lost 5 of their last 6 on the road against teams with a home winning percentage better than 600. And they're 1-5 in their last 6 against teams with a winning home record. Meanwhile, Brooklyn 10-3 in their last 13 at home against teams with a losing record on the road. They're 6-2 in their last 8 following against the spread loss. The Nets, it's hard to defend Durant and Harden. They do miss Joe Harris. I will say that he's out till sometime in January after having arthroscopic ankle surgery. That's a blow to them. They are supposed to get Nick Claxton back, if not tonight, in the near future. I like the Nets here playing at home. It's tough to play in the Barclays Center when you're a visiting team.
Right.
And especially if Towns is limited at all, that makes it an uphill climb for a Minnesota team that struggles to shoot the ball. It'll put a ton of pressure on Anthony Edwards. And as good as he was last season, as good as he's been early this season, I don't know if he can carry that team by himself.
Well, it's tough. And as you said, Brooklyn has Brooklyn has a number of weapons, so uh, that's a that puts them in such a wonderful situation, and it's tough to win in the Barclays Center. I mean, that's another place that it's an intimate building. It's not your 18,000 seat arena. It's more of a 15, 16,000 seat building, and so it does make everything more intimate and more intimidating. So it's not bad enough that Brooklyn actually plays well on on home court, but it's got more of a college feel to it than it does a professional arena.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for Minnesota. I mean, I know that they've played well of late, but most of their wins have come at home. They have to prove to me that they play well on the road in order to be taken seriously at this point, especially even with the Northwest Division being a little bit down with Denver struggling and
Sure.
Portland playing terrible on the road and Oklahoma City being a dumpster fire.
Right.
That leaves the Jazz pretty much by themselves. So one of those teams will have to step up to make a race out of it, but it's hard to do when you don't play well on the road.
Absolutely. All right, here we go. Back to the hardwood. Back to the association and the Mavs.
Home and home. The Pelicans go on the road to face the Mavs down there in Big D. Teams met Wednesday in the Big Easy, and Dallas rolled to a 139-107 win as a 4.5-point favorite. Dallas has taken the last 3 matchups between the teams and 8 of the last 9. In those last 9 meetings, they covered the line in 7 of them. New Orleans is 27th in scoring offense and 26th in field goal percentage offensively. Defensively, they're not a whole lot better. They're 25th in scoring defense and 29th in field goal percentage defense. They're 2-6 in their last 8 on the road against teams with a winning home record, and 2-8 in their last 10 on the road, period. Dallas 4-1 in their last 5 after scoring at least 125 points, 5-2 in their last 7 on one day of rest. Given Dallas's success in this series, even if and I know Kristaps Porzingis is questionable tonight, they probably won't need him to beat New Orleans, who just aren't the same team without Zion Williamson. One has to wonder, will they still be close enough to even be remotely considered for any part of the play-in tournament, much less a playoff spot, by the time he comes back, hopefully later this month?
Well, it'll be a good night for my friend Mark Cuban. It's Hanukkah. Those of us who are of the Jewish faith, it's Hanukkah, and so Mark will get a Hanukkah gift tonight, and that gift will be that the Mavericks will win.
And kudos to Mark Cuban for buying the town of Mustang, Texas, yesterday.
Yeah,
not sure what he's going to do with that town with the massive population of 21, but it's there.
Look at what happened from the TV show Schitt's Creek. Okay, they won a lot of awards. Maybe Mark has the idea of he's going to do some sort of TV show with his new own town. But Mark will definitely be at this, out watching the game tonight, as he always is, watching his Mavs at home, and hopefully they'll give him his big win tonight and keep things rolling. Back to the association, back to the hardwood we go.
No, we're done with the hardwood now.
Oh, my apologies. Let me go.
But one more thing about Cuban, he can always rename the town and call it Doncic Town.
That's a good point. Yeah, again. By the way, Mark is from Pittsburgh, so he could rename it Pittsburgh, Texas. So you never know with Mark.
That's true.
Pirates, Texas. He tried to buy the Pirates a couple of times. Didn't work. So he ended up buying the Mavs. 10 points for anybody who knows who he bought it from. We'll get to that after we go to our first college football championship game of the big weekend, and that's Conference USA.
Yep, that's right. It's the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers who punched their ticket to this game by humbling Marshall last week, 53-21. Meanwhile, they're going to take on the UTSA Roadrunners, who were actually a team ranked in the CFP playoff ranks. I mean, they weren't that high. They were in the low 20s before getting obliterated last week by North Texas, where they gave up 45 points, turning that 11-0 record into 11-1. Now, Western Kentucky's favored by 3.5 points in this game, but I'm not going that way at all. I'm looking at the total, and I look for this one to go over 73. Now, I know that sounds like a lot of points, but hear me out. When these teams met in October, UTSA won by a score of 52-46. Real defensive barn burner. Western Kentucky is second in the nation. They average at least 43.2 points per game. They haven't been held under 31 points in a game all year, and that includes games against Indiana and Michigan State. They've seen the over hit in 8 of their 10 games. Meanwhile, the Roadrunners are 14th in scoring offense by averaging 36.9 points per game. Western Kentucky has put up at least 42 points in 8 of their 12 games this season, including each of their last 5. They're 5-0 in their last 5 after giving up, or the over is 5-0 in their last 5 after picking up more than 450 yards of offense. The over is 8-2 in their last 10 after an ATS win. And the over is 4-1 in UTSA's last 5 games overall. Now, if you like watching the ball go through the air, this is the game for you. Bailey Zappi, the quarterback for Western Kentucky, has completed 70.1% of his throws for 4,968 yards with 52 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. He had 5 touchdowns in the first meeting this season. Frank Harris for UTSA threw 6 touchdown passes in that game. Look for an offensive barn burner here. It wouldn't surprise me if we see another score just like we saw back in October. And this one is going to be one of those games where if you get up and go to get a snack, by the time you come back, there could be 14 more points on the board than when you left.
Definitely you want to pause. By the way, for those of you who want to watch this game and you're wondering, where is it? It's on CBS Sports Network, okay? So CBS Sports Network, if for some reason you don't get that on your cable, you can't stream it because there's no streaming of that service. But here's your hack, okay? Make it simple for you. If you really do want to watch that game, and as Chris says, it's going to be very entertaining. Download the CBS HQ app, which you should have. It's a very good app. It's a wonderful place to find a lot of good content. Download the CBS HQ app, and all you have to do is have an authentication. So if you do have a cable television service or whatever, hit that button, sign yourself in. You can watch it for free, and it's there. So CBS HQ, which is an app you should have anyway. It's a great app for keeping track of what's going on in college and pro sports. So that's on CBS Sports Network tonight. That game will kick off at 7 o'clock.
And that game is going to be a lot more entertaining than half the NFL games you'll see this weekend.
And perhaps better than the next one we're going to talk about, which is the Pac-12 conference and a rematch between the Ducks of Oregon and the Utes of Utah.
Right. These teams met just 2 weeks ago, like you just said, Jim, and Utah rolled to a 38-7 victory in a game where they completely dominated Oregon. The Ducks were held to just 63 yards on the ground in that game. Meanwhile, Oregon has a deal with the Utah rush game. Tavion Thomas has 972 yards on the season. He's one of 4 guys with over 300 yards on the ground, and he scored 12 rushing touchdowns in his last 4 games. Now, Utah is the only team in the Pac-12 to be in the top 30 of the FBS in scoring offense and scoring defense. A big thing about Oregon, they don't force a lot of turnovers. They had 13 takeaways in their first 4 games, but they have just 8 combined in their last 8. And in their 2 losses this season, which came to Stanford and Utah, they failed to generate a takeaway in either one of those contests. Oregon is just 8-20 in their last 28 after an ATS win, and let's be honest, they didn't look all that great beating Oregon State last week. They're 1-4 in their last 5 after giving up more than 280 yards through the air. Utah's 4-1 in their last 5 against teams with a winning record. They're 13-5 in their last 18 following a straight-up win. And Kyle Willingham is 25-13-1 in the last 5 years in conference against the spread against conference opponents. It's the second best ATS record in power conference teams behind only Alabama.
Which is pretty amazing when you think about it. And, Utah has kind of flown under the radar with the Pac-12, but they've been consistently competitive ever since they joined the league.
Right, and the fact that I guess they get overlooked because they play in the Pac-12 South, and you've had so many bad teams in there with Arizona and Arizona State, and USC, all you hear about is, all you've heard about lately is Lincoln Riley. Before that, it was Clay Helton getting fired. And before that, it was, what's wrong with USC. So nobody
Coach
really
du
pays
jour,
attention
yeah.
to Utah.
Yeah.
Utah just gets kind of swept under the rug, but they win games. And
that's all it counts.
I guess it's better to win games quietly than to be in the news for something that's not relevant to what's happening on the field.
Well, they're not, of all of the Pac-12 has so many major markets there that's the smallest market in the league. And, they don't really get a lot of play out there. So, if you're in Utah and out there, it's really BYU that gets the most of the pub out there. And got a lot of friends out at the Desert News, great newspaper. Shout out to the gang at the Desert News that covers both Utah and BYU. So if you really want to know what's going on with Utah football or BYU football, check out the Desert News. Outstanding newspaper in.
They do have some good write-ups about the Jazz too.
They do. You're absolutely right. They do follow the Jazz quite well. So shout out to the Desert News and all my buddies up there. But it should be interesting to see how that goes. It's the first of the big, championship games, all of which will be coming up on Saturday. And by all means, for all the information on those games, be sure to check us out at winnersandwhiners.com. There's a ton of content that's going to be there, which is going to include pretty much everything you could possibly ever want to know about those
and also at 3, Steen and Reichel will also be covering a lot of the bowl games, not bowl games, conference title games for tomorrow, right, including the exciting matchups with Georgia, Alabama, of course, and Baylor, Oklahoma State in the Big 12, Iowa and Michigan in the Big 10, and of course Pitt, Wake Forest in the ACC. And I think that's going to be a very entertaining game there too. Sam Hartman and Wake Forest, a very explosive offensive team. Pitt with Kenny Pickett's an explosive offensive team. And we know neither one of those teams play defense. We watched Pitt lose to Western Michigan earlier this season in a game that I still don't understand. And we saw Wake Forest put up 70 points in a game against Army when they had the ball for, 16, 17 minutes. So,
not a lot of time. It's not necessarily going to be. Absolutely. It's not going to be, like you had said, it's not going to be, Western Kentucky and UT San Antonio. But it's definitely got the potential of being a big score game. So by all means, funny thing, if Michigan loses, which is possible to Iowa, and Alabama gets blown out by Georgia, I don't know if that's going to happen, but they certainly could win big enough.
Well, this is actually the biggest underdog that Saban has been at Alabama since 2008, and it's going to end a streak of 92 consecutive games where the Crimson Tide were favored.
Right, absolutely. And if for some happen, this has been a crazy season. If those two teams lose, it's quite possible that the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame, without Chip Kelly, would be a team headed for the college football playoffs with Mr. Freeman as Marcus Freeman as the head coach of the Fighting Irish in the playoffs.
Yeah, you have to feel bad for Matt Campbell. He was trying to stop for that job, like he wants to get out of Iowa State or something, but I don't even think he got an interview out of it because they pretty much pivoted right to Freeman. And then Tommy Rees said he was going to stay as the offensive coordinator. So that keeps a lot of continuity in the Notre Dame coaching staff, even with Kelly deciding to go to Baton Rouge.
Yeah, and of course Freeman had only been there for a year. He was over at Cincinnati on Luke Fickell's staff. But, and I think, and this is something, Chris, and a lot of you guys out there know the same thing that are joining us. The way Brian runs his operation is much like Saban runs his, is that Brian was the CEO of the team, okay? So the offensive coordinator and the defensive coordinator and the position coaches are all incredibly important because they are the ones that the players know and see on a regular daily basis. They will see Brian, briefly, but they live with these guys. And so the players went to the powers that be at Notre Dame and said, please, 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 this is the guy we want. And Notre Dame was concerned because the college football, the CFP group was concerned that what happens if, they happen to be there, they don't have a head coach, they don't have this. So they quickly moved to Freeman. He's 35 years old. He's young, but he is to me the next Lincoln Riley, and I think that's going to be what's going to happen. So if you're a Notre Dame fan, you might actually have turned out getting a better deal with Freeman than you may have had with Kelly. Time will tell, but I do think the hire of Freeman at 35 years of age and the fact that he is such a solid recruiter is going to help Notre Dame, going forward. Not that Notre Dame needs any notoriety; they know where they got to go. But it's definitely not. I wouldn't be concerned if I'm an Irish fan that oh gosh, we didn't get this coach or we didn't get that coach. But as you say, Matt Campbell's probably just crying, going, at least I would have liked a chance, but didn't have time to do it. They just made a quick hire because they felt they didn't want to lose that possibility of maybe getting their way into the playoff.
Yeah, I mean, it was probably a smart move in the short term just to avoid that potential pratfall because, like you said, anything could happen this weekend. Who knows?
Yeah.
And Notre Dame
all right,
could
well, we've gone through a lot. That's true, and stranger things have happened.
And Cincinnati's got to watch out, too. I mean, I know they're a double-digit favorite, but Houston is no slouch of a team. I mean, Houston's won 10 or 11 in a row. I mean, they lost their opener at Texas Tech. I don't think they've lost since. They've beaten a lot of good teams. Cincinnati has to watch out because they could overlook it and flush themselves right out, too.
Yeah, I don't think there's a lock in any of those games. And believe me, I think Georgia is probably far and away the best team in college football. But I don't think there's a lock in any one of those championship games, starting with the games we talked about for tonight.
That's true.
So, all right. Well, I have waxed on way too long because now everybody's been waiting for saying to me, Jim, how about it? We've gone all this thing, but how about 2 for the money? Well, I'm sorry, folks. Here we go. 2 for the money, Chris. What you got?
Yep. I've got the Oilers over the Kraken on the road. Like we said, it's tough to contain Draisaitl and McDavid. Seattle gives up way too many goals. And that's a bad combination when you're facing the top 2 scoring guys in the league. The Wizards over the Cavs, -3.5. Like we said, Washington is just playing good team basketball, and that's tough to overcome. On the flip side of it, I like Boston College +5 over Notre Dame. Like we said, it doesn't make sense why a team that only runs 7 guys and who has lost 3 of their last 4, and some of them weren't even competitive, is favored on the road over a team that's 5-0 at home. I like the Eagles with the points. And in the Pac-12 title game, I'm going to take Utah -2.5 over Oregon. It may not be as one-sided as we saw 2 weeks ago, but the Utes are just playing very good football right now. And the Ducks, they haven't been the same really since C.J. Verdell went down. I mean, with Travis Ty is a great running back. He's got over 1,000 yards. But the Dye-Verdell combination is what made that offense go. And now it puts more pressure on Anthony Brown at quarterback. I mean, he didn't cut it at BC. He's basically the starter now because Tyler Schaaf had transferred to Texas Tech and then inevitably got hurt there too. I'm not sold on Brown, keeping them in a game if he has to throw.
That's a good point. 2 for the money. And now it's time to move on for 4 for the show.
Right, and we talked about it earlier. I like Vegas with the puck line over Arizona. The Coyotes don't score. They're not great at home. Vegas is scoring, and I'd like to think they can shut down an Arizona team that is worst in the league in scoring offense. By the same token, I like the Rangers with the puck line over the Sharks. San Jose playing their 3rd game in 4 nights, 2nd game of a back-to-back. The Rangers 6-1-1 at home this season. They had Thursday off after beating the Flyers on Wednesday. They should be able to take care of business there. The Mavericks over the Pelicans in Big D. Doncic and Porzingis and company, they've just waxed New Orleans by 32 in New Orleans. They should be able to cover at home. Finally, a Big Ten matchup from the Mackey Arena. Iowa going on the road to face number 2 Purdue. I know everybody's going to say, Iowa's 7-0. Yeah, let's look at who Iowa's beaten. Iowa this season has come up with wins over such basketball luminaries as, that's right, Longwood, the University of Missouri, Kansas City, North Carolina Central, Alabama State, Western Michigan, Portland State, and their signature win was that win the other night when they beat Virginia on the road in the ACC Big Ten Challenge. So you can say they beat one good team out of 7. Now, you can look and say, well, yeah, but Purdue beat Bellarmine and Indiana State. Well, they've also beaten North Carolina, Villanova, and Florida State. Those are 3 teams that are pretty highly ranked when you get right down to it. They're going to be those are teams that are definitely going to be relevant later in the season. Playing in the Mackey Arena is a challenge for anybody. Take Purdue, give the points. We saw them just completely dismantle a good Florida State team the other day, winning 93-65.
Mm-hmm.
You have to think Purdue's going to win this one comfortably.
Yeah, and Leonard Hamilton, what he's done at Florida State, you brought up a good point. All of those teams that they beat at the Mackey Arena are going to probably see the tournament when tournament time comes around. So those are not they beat some pedigree teams to get there. So that's not a bad thing. So we got 2 for the money.
And Iowa's beaten a bunch of nobodies outside of Virginia.
Right. And Virginia's not the national championship type Virginia that we've seen in the past either.
Right. The backline defense of Tony Bennett, it's not the same with all those guys that have gone or left in the last couple seasons.
Yeah. Most of the players playing for this Tony Bennett left their hearts in San Francisco for the other Tony Bennett. So we'll see how that works out. But, Virginia might get right by the end of the season, but right now they're not right. Okay. Right. So 2 for the money. And we've gone 4 for the show. And now it's time to go crazy, folks. The big one. And Chris will sort it out for you. Don't have to go for them all. He'll figure it out for you. He'll give you all that disclaimer. Chris, here you go. Go crazy, man.
Right. This is the overloaded thing where, I throw out 10 of the other games that I like over the course of the night. You don't have to play all of them. You can play 2 of them. You can play 4 of them. You can play 6 of them. If you're really nuts, go ahead and play them all. Don't say I told you should do that because I will deny it. But it's like a Chinese menu. You pick what you want out of it, and you go with what works for you. We're going to go with some of the smaller conferences when it comes to college hoops. I like Quinnipiac, and I know you're wondering who in the hell is Quinnipiac. Well, they play in the MAAC. That's right, the Metro Atlantic. I like them. They're getting 4 points at home over St. Peter's, who is 1-3 this season and hasn't played in a while. Quinnipiac, they're playing at home. They're a good team. They're not going to win the MAC, but they'll be in contention, be in the top 4 of the conference. Take the points there. Charleston, +7 on the road over Furman. The Paladins, they were lucky to get past High Point and USC Upstate on the road. They'll be a little complacent here. The Cougars have played well. Look for them with the points to cover that line. And we talked about Coppin State the other day when I took them +23.5 over St. Bonaventure. The Eagles actually led that game by 12 in the first half before ultimately losing by 12. Here they're on the road against Cornell. Cornell 6-0 against the spread this year. I look for them at home to cover the 7 over Coppin State, who, despite covering 9 of their 10 games, they're 0-10 on the road this season. So fade the Eagles in that one. I also like Indiana in the NBA, -5.5 over the Heat. Bam Adebayo out until sometime in January after thumb surgery. Jimmy Butler out as well tonight. We just watched the Heat get beat by 26 points by Cleveland the other night at home. Thanks, Spoelstra. The Pacers, they won't have T.J. McConnell. But they still have Domantas Sabonis, Malcolm Brogdon, and Karis LeVert they should cover at home. Like I said earlier, the Western Kentucky UTSA game, I looked to go over 73. It's an offensive barn burner. As Billy Red Lions used to say on Maple Leaf Wrestling, don't you dare miss it. I like Houston -2.5, the Rockets over Orlando in a battle of doormats. The Rockets have actually won 4 out of their last 5 games. Orlando 3-10 on the road. Houston 4-5 at home. I look for them to even their record there. I like the Hawks -1.5 over the 76ers. Joel Embiid is back for Philadelphia, but he's not right. He was 3 of 17 from the floor in the 88-87 loss to the Celtics the other night. The Sixers, they just don't look right since after Harris and Thibault and Embiid all went on the COVID list and have come back. It's going to take a little time for them to get back to speed. I like the Hawks at home. Trae Young has 5 straight games with at least 30 points. It's the longest stretch in the league this season. And then I like the Jets with the puck line at home over the Devils. I like Anaheim at home over Calgary. The Flames playing the second game of a back-to-back after beating the Kings last night. And I look for the Sharks and the Rangers to stay under 5.5 after we said, like we said, San Jose playing the third game in 4 nights. They only scored twice last night. They might be lucky if they score twice tonight against Igor Shesterkin, who's on a roll for the Rangers. Look for that one to fall under the total.
Okay. And as you say, this is one of those things where you can take them all, or you can just mix and match and do the Chinese menu situation.
And don't forget, we did hit a 2-teamer yesterday, and we did have a bunch of guys in the shot in the dark that panned out, including that game with UC San Diego over Eastern Michigan.
Right.
So we're not out here trying to give you duds.
Right. There's a couple of big hits during the course of the week as well. So
that's right.
It's been a good week, and it's been a fun week.
And before we go, Jim, why don't you tell them what we got coming up next week?
Happy to do so. We have some guests coming up. We got Jack Healy, who's going to join us. Jack is he's one of the people involved in the choosing of the teams and slotting the teams in the bowls. And if you don't know much about that, Jack's going to give you the background on that, because each bowl has an affiliation with a conference, and its determination as to how and who gets moved from one bowl to the next bowl to the other bowl all comes through a slotting process. Jack will explain it to you, because by the time we get together on Monday, some of those bowls will actually have been filled out. So he'll be able to give you some information on that. We'll also be joined by Pete Medhurst. Pete, the voice of the University of Navy. He'll be with us next Thursday or Friday to talk about Army-Navy, which is coming up next Saturday. So
he knows a lot about betting as well, so
that's
he'll be able to add some insight that we don't have.
He's a voice of Rosecroft Raceway, which if you are a Trotters fan, you know that's a famous racetrack right in the Washington, D.C. area. And he's also, speaking of Washington, D.C., he's also one of the members of the Washington Nationals radio broadcast team. So we'll have a lot to talk about with Jack and with Pete next week, as we try to integrate some guests into our little fun and let them have some fun, let you guys meet some people that you may not, you may have heard of, but you may not have known. So they're coming, and more to come after that. So any final thoughts here before we turn things over in less than a half an hour to Scott and Scott, who will be, of course, back at the window, which is where you want to be. You want to always be back at the window cashing those tickets in. So Scott and Scott coming up at the top of the hour. But Chris, any final thoughts before we get out of here today?
Well, I think the biggest thing is it's the best weekend of the season for college football with all the big conference title games. You can't go wrong watching any of them. But it depends what you want. If you want to see offense, obviously UTSA, Western Kentucky's the way to go. If you want to see defense, Georgia, Alabama is going to be the way to go.
Absolutely.
If you want to see something in between, well, I mean, the big question mark right now for me is, will Jerry Bohannon play for Baylor? He missed last week's game against Texas Tech. If he doesn't go, can they hold on against an Oklahoma State team that shut them down back in October when they met? Or will we see the Cowboys potentially sneak their way into the CFP?
Right.
because they're ranked number 5 right now.
Right.
So if somebody slips up and they win, will they move into that top 4 spot? And will Mike Gundy get to go on another rant about how, like he did a few years ago, come at me, I'm a man, I'm 40. Except now I don't know how old he is now. He might be 50. But
Yeah.
It's a great weekend to be a fan.
It's been a while, yeah. But it is. And heaven knows we're going to have a lot to talk about come Monday.
And make sure that
everybody
you
have
guys
a wonderful
go watch
weekend,
the
safe
show.
weekend.
Tell them that they should talk about us.
Right.
Talk about them.
Right. Hang around. They're coming up at the top of the hour, and we're gonna have some fun next week. Have a safe weekend, an enjoyable weekend, and we will see you Monday at 1:30, because that's where Just Parlays is. And mark it in your calendar. As I said before, please smash that like button and the subscribe button. And join us, whether it's on Facebook, whether it's on Twitch, whether it's on Twitter, whether it's on YouTube. No matter how you get us, please seek us out. If you miss something, not to worry. We're here. Just look at it, go through it, stop it, pause it, and find out what Chris is talking about, because he does know what he's talking about, and you're going to be much better off if you listen to what Chris is talking about. So until then.
You can always reach us on Twitter. You see our handles right there.
That's right. We're omnipresent, as the old saying goes. So have a wonderful and safe weekend, folks. We will see you 1:30 Eastern time on Monday. Until then, be safe, enjoy yourself, and have a great, great weekend.